Okay, welcome everybody. We are here for day one, setting the stage for thriving. And this has been a long time in the making. I think I first started thinking about putting this event together back in September or October of last year. It was only because of the move that I had to postpone everything and so on. So this is a labor of love that I've put together. So many of us have put into this to make this come alive. So thank you for being here. Welcome everybody. And if you're watching now or in the future, we totally excited to have you here. And a couple things. So I'll start by introducing myself. I don't like to talk about myself that much. For those who know me, I kind of avoid it, especially in a public way, like, yes, I'm happy to talk about ethical business building or, post-capitalism quite a lot, but the focus on me, I'm not so keen on. But I will say hello to everyone who I don't know, or reintroduce myself to those who do know. My name is Anuradha. I use my pronouns are Anuradha and they, them. And I'm based here in London, Greater London. And I was born in the US, in Arizona. And I miss the Sonoran Desert so much. Every day I think about the mountains and the Sonoran Desert in general, how beautiful it is. And the kind of story, I can say so many facts about myself. Yes, I have some degrees. Yes, I have lots of experience. Yes, I have so on. But the biggest things I do, gesticulating while I talk, that's certainly a thing. But basically, my work is running the Kotha constellation, and I basically run some classes, online classes like The Future is Accessible and Sowing Post-Capitalist Seeds. But I also share things around personal growth, things for individuals, and DEI work, DEI adjacent work for organizations. How can we start to change the conversation to build something beyond what we have in capitalism right now? That is my biggest aim, to help people understand those structures. And I will say the thread that has run through all the different jobs I've had, all the different titles, all the different everything's I've done, paid and unpaid labor that I've had, that it is understanding how capitalism and colonialism have shaped who we are at a really internal level. That indoctrination is in deep. And if we don't understand that indoctrination for what it is, then it shapes who we are. It shapes how we show up. It shapes what we do in the world, how we do our work. Can we do that work ethically or equitably and with a justice-oriented mind when we've been brought up in this society? And I don't think that it's completely a binary type question. I'm going to live in the nuance with that, but that's what I offer people, that paradigm shifting work that we need to do to free ourselves. So with that being said, the two topics I wanted to teach a little bit about today, how the session's going to work. I wanted to spend, okay, I'm going to try to hit my time marks, 5 minutes each on two topics, and then we'll have the container to be opened, and you can bring whatever you bring. We can have discussion, you can have questions, reflections, anything that might serve you. And why I'm sharing these things the way I'm sharing them is a few years ago, unbeknownst to me, I was starting to make some strides in my work. And I thought, I'm really starting to hit what I need to hit. And for a variety of reasons, in a very short period of time, my capacity was diminished. And what I would notice is every single day, month on month, my capacity was diminishing further and further. And the trauma of certain incidents were stacking up, and I wasn't having the emotional capacity or spaciousness to move through them with grace or process or let go of things. So the situation was getting further and further afield from where I thought I would be and where I wanted to be. And so I really had to reevaluate my life. Every single aspect of my life, the last 4 or 5 years, has had to kind of go through this scrutiny, and not by, not that I don't regularly reflect on my life, but this was a deep one. This was not like a version edit 1.1. No, this is like a 2.0 kind of. We have to look at the actual paradigms, the systems I've set up, the way I'm functioning and thinking and looking at the world fundamentally had to change if I was going to come out of this really dark place that I was in. And this is not just emotionally dark, this was physically and so on, right? There was a lot of places. So I'll be honest with that. I'm not going to go into specifics because my specifics don't matter. As I was reading the entries, as people were registering for the event, so many of you are in a place of burnout. On average, it seemed like, so there was a few of you who aren't in burnout. Well done. If that's where you are, I hope you stay there. Cheers. And, thumbs up, like awesome. But for those who were noting there was some level of burnout, the scores were ranging between 5 and 10 on average. So it's not just a little bit of burnout. It could be on the end of acute, right? And what happens in that? We're living in a time of pandemic. It's not post-pandemic, right? So we want to be thinking of that. There is a economic contraction of sorts happening. I know people were not supposed to talk about it and whatever, but that is really literally what is happening. There are fewer dollars in circulation in the world. And since the US dollar is the world currency, right? The currency we exchange in for the most part, whether or not you use a dollar, it doesn't matter. It is tied to the global, how we globally use it. So that is the contraction in the US or anywhere in the world is happening. We're past the precipice of global change, global destruction in terms of climate change, right? We're past certain benchmarks of, if we had just put in certain tiny measures over the years, we would be in a better spot. But globally, we have not yet done that. So that's the legitimate place we're in. And all these things are going to be impacting us. Then there's the local things, the personal matters, all those things we maybe don't share with people, or that maybe we're only sharing with those things close to those people close to us, those things that are happening to us on a daily basis, the barrage. So of course, we're in a place of burnout. Now, here are some of the tools I used. And I want to say, I realize that I'm privileged in some ways, and I'll note some of those places. And I will also say that I've been disadvantaged in other ways. And I will point some of those things out so that you might not be in the same exact positionality that I am. But I hope that you can find some wisdom, some pearls, if you will, to take with us. And that's actually one of my favorite and beautiful metaphors from nature, that it's the irritation of that piece of sand within an oyster that creates this pearl, that in response to this grit that is happening, we're all in the grit, grit of life right now, that the oyster starts to put a secretion around this piece of grit. And slowly but surely, it makes this beautiful pearl that we value. But that's where that comes from. So in this moment of grit, I'm not trying to spiritually bypass, but I do want to make a note of that what we're putting in place to support ourselves in the grit, that is the beautiful lesson that can come from this. All right. So the first one was admitting your truth. And that that's really hard. This is like the most uncomfortable one. It's like, what do I have to say? Does that mean I have to admit everything to everyone else? I don't know. So this is me being real. I hope I'm not being too weird, but if you want to sprinkle with little stickers or things in the chat, I appreciate that. Just lets me know that you're following me and so on. So the question for me when I think about admit your truth is, what's important to you? And this is not the typical planning, goal setting, New Year's Eve, we're setting our goals for the next year, kind of what's important to you, right? Where someone gives you a handout or you do a reflection activity. Not to say that those things are good or bad. If they work for you, fabulous. But what I'm talking about is at that time in my life, there was no place for me to regularly pull out a journal and write about it. There was no thinking about printing out any piece of paper or buying any planner. It wasn't going to get used. So what it was is in the dark moments, in the times where I couldn't sleep because sleep was becoming very elusive with all my pain and so on. What can I do? So it wasn't to me about what do I want to do with my life? It's not thinking about legacy. It's not thinking about any of these typical questions. It's thinking right now in this place where I am completely overwhelmed and completely stressed out. What do I need? What do I want? And being honest with that. Do I like these things? And it's asking the really tough questions. It's feeling the way through these questions. It's when you've been crushed, and we're all kind of being crushed by that wheel of capitalism. What matters? What needs to stay? And what things need to go? And sometimes that's a practical thing like items, like decluttering. And we're going to have people talking about that in the rest of the series. And by the way, you can go watch those conversations already. They're live over on YouTube. You should have gotten the link. I'll resend it a little later. But so sometimes it's physical decluttering, but sometimes it's spiritual or emotional clarity. Sometimes it is these relationships as they are not working. My relationship with my deities, with the land, with my ancestors. Maybe there's people in your life that are not you're not really having the relationship that is fulfilling to you. And maybe things need to change. So it's those moments. And for me, there wasn't a whole lot of time or space for me to write all of these down and be poetic and do, all of those things. So what I did was I would focus on deep dives on certain very specific categories. And I'd follow that rabbit hole down to more and more detailed aspects. So if I'm going to be feeling my way through relationships, well, then I went to the relationships that were causing me a lot of pain. And I was spending time there. It wasn't writing paragraphs. Some people like to write, right? I know I read hands. I use a lot of astrology, not personally, not professionally. And there is 4 elements, right? In terms of that, although not all cultures use those same 4 elements. I'll just note that we have fire, water, air, and earth, but other cultures like in Hindu culture, we don't use the same ones. We also have the absence of all of this, the ether, what it's called, right? So we also have that 5th element. Different cultures use different things, but if you're an expansive water type who needs to have that emotional writing period or crying, do that. But I'm a little bit more of an earthy person in some things and a little bit more airy. So there's a lot more thought patterns happening. There's a philosopher nature in me. That's something I lean on. The earthiness means I need a solid plan. I'm not going to speak about it a lot. I'm not going to be verbose in my delivery or thought about it, but I'm going to feel it very deeply in a way that I probably couldn't share or articulate. So whatever way suits you. And I'm not trying to leave out fire people. You might need to, be really bold and passionate and burn things to the ground in some cases, if those are your archetypes, right? So feel those pieces and come back to that foundation pieces of your life. What is the foundations that are going to come with us? What are the pieces we need to really look at and say, this needs to be refined? What are things that we need to say, you know what, there's a lot of empty spaces in my foundation that got washed away. What do I want to rebuild here with? What's missing? And we see that, right? It's not just like the midlife crisis kind of thing. It is as we're demolishing capitalism, as we're seeing in late stage capitalism. The foundations of a lot of these pieces are not able to focus, right? Not able to focus. Here it's me not focusing. That's what that is. Neurodivergent went on a walkabout, so that's what's happened there. But those foundational pieces don't fit anymore. They're gone. So what do we have to replace them with? We want to, so this is where we get to seed what is it we want to be building towards. So when we're talking about admit your truth, hey, I really need more love in my life. I really need more care. So I need to have more community. And if that's a foundational piece and it's just starting small, naming that and envisioning what that is, because there are so many places we need that community of care. I see that as a thing that so many of us are missing right now. Those connections, that time with people, that more than one of us care about something and we're coming together, right? That's a foundational piece. And if that's what's capitalism says, no, you can be individuals, you can be self-made, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, and we're going to transactionally manipulate each other to get our needs, to get our wants. And then, of course, somebody's a winner and somebody's a loser instead of it being mutually beneficial. So that might be a foundational stone. That was certainly a foundational stone. For me, one of the foundational stones of how do I look at work was washed away. Oh my God, I am so like, I just kept having thoughts of, I am allowing myself to be, you know, ethically unfair towards myself. I am doing so much labor and I'm not getting a lot for it in terms of the things I need to support myself. And I really had to take a look. How can I talk about ethical business building if I'm allowing myself to be basically undervalued in the way that I show up? If I'm doing things in a way that causes me 10 times the effort to finish a thing, I've set it up in such a way that is not beneficial or supportive to me, that's not a good thing, right? So that was something I had to really look at. So I'm hoping that this is just one of the tools that I used. The other tool that I used was discerning your low tide, and I'll explain what that means. This is a fun way of talking about capacity. So for me, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, my capacity started to dwindle. It was going down and down and down each day, each month, month over month. The amount of energy, the brain capacity, and so on was so low at points that I was really enthusiastic, so many ideas, but I knew my body and my executive dysfunction and my ability to follow through was just severely hampered. So I had to redesign things that I could actually get up and show up and do the things, not a version of what I wanted to do. Like it was just night and day, the gap between what I wanted to do and what I thought I should be able to do and what I really could do. So discerning your low tide, this concept comes from Profit First. And that's a book written by Mike Michalowicz. I'm not trained in it or anything. I have used this system in my own business. And yes, the way he approaches his TED Talk, which he's got like a 7 or 8 minute TED Talk, and his book is very fat phobic. So I will name that straight off the bat. But one of the things he is saying when we're determining our Profit First, which is a cash management system for our business, he's talking about this concept of finding the low tide. And he describes it as, say, like you're sitting on the beach and you're trying to determine where to set up camp for the day. You'll watch the tide as it's coming in. And so you would set your blanket down for the day a little back. If you notice it's going out and out, if the tide is going out slowly, then you're going to walk further out and put your blanket and set up there, for instance. So I adapted this to not think about money, although money can be a thing. If we're burnt out and we're not able to do the same labor in the same way, then our money situation might also be having a low tide moment. So you can use this for that. I was using this concept for my own energy level. And this is so widely used, so please use it whatever way and tell me your cool stories about it too. So basically, it's following those ebbs and flows of how money is coming in or energy is coming in or whatever might be happening month over month, day over day, you know. So you're going to track this over a time. And so you might need to have what are you going to measure with? I'm not sure, but you have to think about what measurements make sense. So for me, I was looking at money, but I was also looking at month over month, my symptoms were getting worse. And so that means I had less energy to do things. Or I was just noticing, hey, these jobs that I used to be able to do really quickly, those metrics are going up. It's taking me longer and I'm not enjoying it. Like that's a metric, right? So think about some metrics you can start looking at and watching that ebb and flow. Sometimes in a cycle, a lot of our businesses or organizations might have more clients or more times where we're more energetic, or there's a time we're thinking about summer vacation, right? There's always a kind of two activation energies in the year around the New Year's buzz and back to school. So we might find a natural influx of new clients or new energy, and we're working with that, right? So this can be an annual or a many year plan. You can look over historically what track these trends, but you can also look for them internally. And then what I noticed is you set some frequency, you're measuring this. And what I said is, oh my gosh, this is receding. And it's not receding just a little bit, it's receding fast. Okay, I've got to set things up. So I started to set things up for low tide. On a day when I was at low energy, how could I continue my life? How could I still have touch points to what was most important? And how can I have that to be easy access? So that means, could I run my business in a way that was easy? Could I have connections with those I cared about the easiest and that really mattered to me, right? So whatever that was discerning what that low tide looked like for me. So those are the two concepts I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to have another two for you tomorrow. But for the last few minutes, I would love to open up the floor to ask any question, for you to ask any questions, share any reflections, anything like that. This is your space.
Hello, my name is Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi. I just wanted to say I appreciate being in a space where I'm reminded that I'm not the only one who have experienced making a lot of contributions, paid and unpaid, and not receiving the resources that I need to live the life that I desire. So understanding that that is something that we're experiencing, it's just helping me realize a lot of us do want to be helpful to others, and understanding the importance of putting ourselves, as a part of someone who needs to make sure we have what we need in order to help. So I think it's a very helpful conversation. It helps me put things in proper perspective. And so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. We can't forget to include ourselves in the equation. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I have a question about when you were looking at your low tide. My name is Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
When you were looking at your low tide, did you write things down, or was it more just getting a sense and a feeling of this is like, how did you logistically do it? Did you write kind of a plan out, or did you kind of craft it over time just by feeling your way?
I would like to say that I wrote it down, and but I would. But
no, I'm just trying to imagine how I might do it, and so yeah.
Yeah. So I think, different times, different things would happen. I'm quite neurodivergent, and I'm testing out a lot of different models of what's going to help. Right now, I'm able to use these, print offable kinds of habit trackers of different sorts, where you can write down, and a lot of journals are having those right now, or so on. So you can make your own, or so on. To me, if I'm in a place where I need to track symptoms, that's an easy way to do it.
Mhm.
However, when I was in a place where my capacity was so low that idea of writing anything on a pencil and paper was not going to happen, that is not how I did it. So I was
Okay.
actually able to have people around me, including my partner, who was able to have a good, they're strong enough. They were helping me remember, hey, a month ago, you could do that or couldn't do this, right? When I did have clarity, I was able to take notes on my medical files and so on, or my business things.
Mhm.
I would continue my profit first strategy for my finances in my business. So that means it's once a month container. I open that up, I follow whatever steps I need to take, and I'm tracking certain things. So if there was a pattern in place, then I would follow that. But if there wasn't, then it was kind of mentally happening till I had the strength to kind of think about it enough to make note of it.
Mhm.
So it depends on where you are in that strategy. When we're first observing, in my opinion, when we're observing the pattern, we collect the data in whichever way. That's a space where we're witnessing and observing without changing the system. Then there's going to be a trial and error period where we're, okay, let me switch this out. If I have this, will that be better? If I did that, so there might be a gap where we're testing. And then once we codify it, once we're like, you know what, it's pretty much set. This is the way I'm going to do it. I've created personalized documents for all my systems, not all, the systems that I have started that I want to. And then since now I don't have to remember it, I've created a checklist. So for each month for my own business, Profit First, for instance, I will go through my checklist. So here's a list of tasks that I have. Here's the bank balances and so on, right? So if there's a way that you test this low tide, then you create something out of it, then you can use this as a document to continue. And what I have on the end of that document is, hey, if I need to make any edits to this document, make it now and then print it out again, print it out for next time. So I'm always talking about that. Yes, Deanna, the book title is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So it's a business accountancy book, not really related to personal growth at all, but I just used it in that way. I took his example and modified it for what I needed. So right now, I'm in a place where luckily that tide is going out and out. So I'm happy to stay on for as long as anybody wants to ask any questions. I'll be here, but if you need to drop off, thank you for joining us. I am so grateful that you've been here. I hope this has been of value. And if there's a way that you have found value, then either, it would be great for you to invite your friends, anybody who might want to register. There's still space. There's still time for that to happen. And if you want, you can send me, instead of buy me a coffee, I say buy me flowers. So I use the buy me a coffee function. I don't remember my link, but I will drop it in the next email. So if you find me, I'm the only Anuradha on there. So if you just put in Anuradha Kotha, you will find me, but I will put that link in. And if you could buy me some flowers, that would be awesome. So thank you so much for being here. And does anybody have any other questions for me before we head out? All right, I guess not. Thank you so much again, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right, take care.